Hey there, it's Liz from No Trace. In this video, I'm going to show you how to sew a super adorable mini tote bag that's made with selvage edges of fabric and long, thin scraps. So let's go. Okay, let me show you what you're going to need to make this little scrappy tote bag. The outer part is made up from 4 different panels. And so in order to create that, you're going to want 4 pieces of batting that are 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. And then I'm going to be attaching a whole bunch of selvage edges. So you're going to need a bunch of selvage edges. The back side of the tote is made with a solid piece of fabric that is 10 by 10. And I added some cotton batting to this fabric to give the tote a little bit more structure and stiffness. You could also use a canvas fabric, or if you use regular interfacing, you could add some of that. I only use cotton batting because I try to avoid synthetic materials, but use what you have on hand. I also have 2 pieces of fabric that are 10 by 10 for the lining of the bag. And then I'm also going to be making my straps from 2 pieces of fabric that are 12 inches long and 4 inches wide. But you could definitely use some webbing for your straps or even some really sturdy ribbon for your straps. And I'm also going to add a little no trace tag to the side of my bag. This is optional, of course, if you want to get some of your own printed. I have the link to the store that I use in the description box, so just click below this video. The first step is to attach the selvage edges to your batting squares, and we are going to be sewing them on diagonally from corner to corner, and I'll show you how to do that. At the machine, I have my stitch length bumped up to 5 millimeters. That's the longest length. And I'm just going to be sewing from corner to corner, and I'm just going to go straight down, and I'm going to kind of feel on the other end where this other corner is and just make a straight line towards it. The first piece is sewn on. Next, I'm going to pick a second selvage edge. I also am using some long, thin scraps of fabric, and I'm going to place it right side together with my first piece of fabric, and then I'm going to join these 2 with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Back at the machine here, I'm just going to get these under my presser foot and join them all the way down with a 1/4 inch. Once they're joined, I'm going to open up my second piece of fabric, and I'm just going to press it with my fingers so it lays flat. And then I'm going to add a row or 2 of stitches on top. It's totally optional how many, but you want to add at least 1 row to each piece of fabric, and just once again sew straight down. Okay, I'm going to continue this process of adding strips onto my batting until the whole square is covered. So I'll be right back. Okay, my first square is done. You can see that the cotton batting is totally covered. So I'm going to take a moment and straighten it back out. And I love to use a ruler and rotary cutter for this. It makes it a lot easier. And I like to flip it over so I can see the cotton batting. This is a little, I don't think you can tell, but this is a little Frankenstein batting that's actually made up of a few different pieces of cotton batting. And I learned that term in my Zero Waste Sewing and Crafting community on Facebook. So if you are interested in joining us for challenges and conversations, the link to join the free Facebook group is in the description box below this video, so hop on over there. I'd love to see you in there. Okay, so one side is trimmed. I'm just going to trim this side. This part is always very satisfying. And of course, I'm saving these little scraps for future projects. I work with all natural fibers, so I could also compost those tiny bits, but I'm gonna try to give them a second life. So I saved them all. Okay, let's get this guy trimmed down. And some of these will be long enough to use on the other batting squares, because I have to cover 3 more batting squares still. All right, last side here. I don't know if you can hear the leaf blower on my street, but I am very sorry if you can. It's kind of a constant for some reason. Okay, saving these. This is really tiny, it'll go somewhere else. And my first square is ready to go. I'm gonna go through the same steps with the other 3 pieces of batting. So give me a moment and I will show you how it's looking. All right, all 4 of my little squares are done. And now I'm gonna just take a moment and arrange them in a way that is appealing to me. So there's no right or wrong way to do this, but I kind of wanted to create a little bit of that diamond effect here. And once I have that figured out, I think I'm gonna do it like this. Now I'm going to start sewing these squares together, and I'm going to place them right sides together, and then I'm going to sew them with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. First these 2 and then these 2. Okay, I'm not using any pins, but obviously if you want, you could pin your pieces together. And I turned my stitch length back down, so now it's at about 3 millimeters, and I'm going to do a little back stitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, these are joined, and it's kind of hard to see, but there's the seam, and I also joined these 2. So now I am going to trim the seam allowance. That just means to cut the extra fabric on this side of my seam so that there's going to be less bulk when I flatten this whole piece out and have it finished on the front of my bag. And of course, I'm going to save my tiny bits for my tiny bits bin, my tibby. And these get used for stuffing or other creative projects, so save your little bits. Okay, we're gonna trim this one down too. And then I'm going to press this seam open so that it lays really flat. So let me get my ironing mat here. And it's a little bit of a pain. It's not a huge pain, but you just have to kind of get in there and with your fingers and or a chopstick or a pencil and get these 2 sides to open up. It's tricky only because there's so many different pieces of fabric. There's so many seams. But if you take this extra step, it'll help your bag just to lay more flat and just look a little bit better. So even though it's a little tricky, I would recommend doing it. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it over and press it on the front. And then I will repeat that ironing process with the other one. Okay, these are done. And I kind of love this pattern. I feel like maybe I should have had a little piece of darkness here, but I don't know, I'm really enjoying this sort of diamond look these days. Okay, anyways, so next I'm gonna place these with the right sides together and then sew them with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And now that they're sewn, I'm gonna go ahead and do the same process. I'm gonna trim the fabric so that it's more like a 1/2 inch, or sorry, more like a 1/4 inch seam allowance. and then save my little bits, open it up, and once again I'm going to get in here, poke around, and press it so that it lays as flat as possible. Okay, this panel is done. This would be really cool as a pillow also. So maybe I'll have to do a video on how to make this into a pillowcase. So we're ready to move on to the other parts of the bag. So I'm gonna set this aside for now. I'm using just one piece of fabric for the back side of the bag, but obviously you could go through this process to make the front and the back of your bag. And like I mentioned, you could use canvas for this, or you could use some quilting cotton with some cotton batting, which is what I'm gonna do. And I'm actually gonna sew some diagonal lines. I'm gonna kind of quilt this one little part of the bag at the machine so that it'll have more of a quilty look like this bag. I don't know how well you can see that. I'm gonna start at one corner of the bag. You could do any kind of pattern that you like for this layer. I'm bumping my stitch length back up to 5, and I'm just gonna sew straight down. And now I'm going to go ahead and add more rows of stitches about every inch until this whole panel is covered. Okay, I finished doing a sort of machine quilting here on my other panel, outer panel. So now I'm going to bring these two panels together, right sides together, and I want to decide what the top is. It doesn't really matter. I guess I'll do it this way. And I'm also gonna add a little no trace tag on the side because I like to do that. I don't always do that because sometimes I forget. Like in this bag, I forgot to add a tag. That's okay. But on this version, I remembered. So cheers for me. And I'm gonna put it about, I don't know, about 2 inches from the top. And I'm just going to clip it in place. Let's get some of our clips out. And I'm gonna put a few more clips on here so that I can take these to the machine and join them with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm not gonna join them at the top, right? Because our bag needs to open, but I am gonna sew them together on these 3 sides with a 1/2 inch, and I'll be right back. These are joined, and I'm going to do that same thing with my liner fabric. I am going to join these 2 right sides together on 3 sides with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so both of these are ready for the next step, but I'm actually going to set them aside and make some straps. I am using fabric scraps that are 12 inches long, 4 inches wide. All of these numbers, by the way, are in the description box below this video, so just click into there if you want to snag them. And like I mentioned, you could just use webbing or sturdy ribbon and save yourself this step, or if you want to put some of your scraps to use, this is super simple. All you gotta do is fold these in half lengthwise. Next, you open up your strap, bring the raw edges in towards the center crease, and iron it again. Careful, don't burn yourself. Then fold the whole thing in half again, press it again, and repeat that ironing for both pieces of fabric, and then just top stitch both sides of your strap. All right, I've got my 2 straps, and now it's time to put the whole bag together, and it is almost done. This is other than the creating this look, this is a fast little project. So I'm gonna turn my liner fabric right side out, get my handy dandy chopstick and kind of push out these corners. And I'm also going to press the seams open And that'll help me find the seam better for the next step. So just with my fingers here. Next, I'm gonna put the inner layer into the outer layers, and I am going to also press open the seams on the side of the outer layers so that I can line them up with the inner layers and get a pin in there. I have so many crooked pins. If you have any tips for how to straighten one of your pins, let me know. I've just been kind of bending them back by hand. Okay, anyways, I'm lining up these seams with each other, pitting them together here. And now we can add the straps. I got my ruler here, and I am gonna be placing the strap, so I'm gonna fold it like this, place it in between the right sides of the inner layer and the outer layer. And I'm using my ruler because I want to place the straps 2 inches away from the side seam right here. So when I get to 2 inches, I'm going to place this so it's centered at 2.5 inches away, but if you just count over 1, 2, then put your strap. It doesn't really matter, you just want to do it in the same place for all of the ends of your strap. So let's come over to this side. Once again, we're going to measure 1, 2, and then put the strap, the other end right here. Go ahead and pin it in place. And I like to have the strap poking out about between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch. That just makes it a little bit easier when I sew, so that I know I'm going to catch it in my seam. Okay, so I'm going to pin this one in place. This is why my pins are bent, because I'm always using them on really thick projects. Okay, flip it over. I'm going to repeat that same process between these 2 layers. So get that in between there and then pin it. I'll be right back. Now that both of the straps are pinned in place, I am going to sew all the way around the edge here, starting near the side seam. I'm going to start my stitches right before the first strap here. And I'm going to make sure to sew over the strap with extra rows of stitches. I'm also going to back stitch here at the beginning. And then I'm going to sew over the strap, back stitch all the way over the strap, and then over it once more, and just repeat that all the way around the bag. So here's the next strap. I'm going to do the same reinforcement here. Okay, I've sewn over the last strap. I'm just going to do a little back stitch here, and I'm going to stop my stitches, and I'm going to leave an opening here so that I can turn the bag right side out. Okay, now it's time for the grand reveal of this cute little bag. The leaf blowers are back. I don't know if you can hear them. I don't know if my camera picks that up, but man, they are at it. Working double time out there. Okay. This bag is a really great size for, like, if you don't want to carry a big purse, but maybe you have a little more than, you know, fits in your pockets. This is an awesome size. Oh my goodness, it's so cute. And of course, the chopstick is really going to come in handy, especially for these corners. If you wanted to trim some of the fabric away from the seams, that would give your bag a little more of a pointiness here on the corners. But I actually like the bulkiness because it gives the bag a little bit more structure. So the bag just sort of, I don't know, it looks more it looks less flimsy, I guess. Oh my goodness, it's so cute. Okay, then we push the liner inside, and I do want to top stitch. There's one last seam here. I want to top stitch all around this edge, and I'm gonna take a minute and I'm gonna iron this top edge so that it lays as flat as possible. And I'm especially gonna iron this area where I have an opening so that it lays nice also. Then I'm gonna do a quick top stitch, and then this bag is gonna be done. So hang on for the very final grand reveal. Don't go away. The bag is done. I really love the way it turned out. And if you want more mini tote projects, I have a free PDF downloadable pattern with 3 different mini tote patterns. So all you have to do is click into the link below this video.